Welcome back. Yes, it's still daybreak on Trust TV. Now, local airlines in Nigeria have said they have less than 3 days to shut down operations over lack of aviation fuel. At the moment, the airlines are buying the fuel at 670 naira from normal price of 190 naira recently. Now, speaking before the Special House Committee investigating the unavailability of the product with the aim of preferring solutions, the airlines represented by the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, Air Peace, Mr. Allen Onyema, said that they cannot afford the fuel anymore. Now, take a listen.
The base is surprising because the lowest we have seen as at this morning is 445 and another high of 605. There's a trader that is selling at 630. We don't think this is normal, and therefore we discounted it. So without any science around it or logic, and let me emphasize, we agreed that they will sell it for the next 3 days at 500 naira to the liter, and on day 3 or day 4, they will switch to the new formula that everyone can access and can compute. And lastly, as requested by the Airline Operators Association of Nigeria, they will be granted license by the authority to import petroleum product, particularly ATK, so that they can have a way of benchmarking the sales from other customers. They can also bring in cheaper product whenever it is possible.
We thank you. We thank the public. And even though at 500, our unit cost per seat, now we come down to about 85,000. If we remain at 500, unit cost per seat for a 110-seater aircraft. That is the truth. Bearing, insurance and other things. That is our pain. I wish we could buy this fuel at 200 so that Nigerian passengers and everyone will be able to afford flying. That is our predicament. So the public should understand if there is a shift from what they are paying now and what they are going to pay soon, because it's open here about what is happening. Anybody can calculate it.
The last thing I think any marketer wants is to create a situation where the general public have to pay hand over fist or over and beyond what the going rate for any product is. I think the resolution that we reached today is one that's amiable, and we look forward to working with our colleagues in the aviation sector so that we continue to deliver cost-efficient fuel to the Nigerians.
At least we have come to terms. We have agreed on a number of things that will help the industry. Moving forward, we have a basis and the baseline for us to work. Speaking about the minds of Nigerians, what they want and what will happen, and today it has happened. It's the positive side of it. Thank you very much. We'll make our report available by the grace of God as early as tomorrow for plenary for them to consider. We thank you for this very wonderful opportunity, and we thank God above all for the life, good health He has given us, and the direction He has given us to solve this matter. Our prayer, like my brother just mentioned, or Toby, is that we pray that you will follow up GMD to ensure that what we have agreed will not come again to have a discussion on it. It's not our prayer. However, I will give it to you and all others that we are going to put it in the clouds there for a monitor of this particular discussion to ensure it is implemented to the fullest, so that we will have a very good instrument for us all to work with.
All right, to give us perspective on this, we have aviation researcher and publisher Godi Ike in the studio with us today. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Hi.
All right, now I remember the last time you were here to talk about the hike in airfare. Yes, you're here to talk about that. And right now we're seeing a lot of issues, springing up in the aviation sector. Are we likely to see a collapse in the aviation sector?
I would say God forbid it, because it's not our desire. If it happens, excuse me, it will ground the economy of the nation. it will appear that a whole lot of people do not appreciate the contribution of aviation to the economy of any nation in the world, not just Nigeria. And so I would say, God forbid, that it doesn't happen, but it would seem that our activities are heading that direction. So somebody needs to do a 180 degrees and turn it around so that we will face a better direction. That seems to be what's going on, because it's totally unacceptable that we'll be talking about 600 and above per liter of aviation fuel. Even at 500, it still doesn't make sense, because it will throw the cost of operation overboard. And of course, the airliners, in order to survive, we pass on that cost to passengers in terms of, hike in air ticket. As a matter of fact, I flew to Lagos in company of my wife just a few days ago, precisely on Friday, and came back on Sunday. For two of us, that flight cost us, just the flight alone, 200,000 naira. There are not many families in Nigeria today that can afford to spend that kind of money just to do a trip for 2 days, in Lagos and back. It's just totally unacceptable. We can't go on this way.
We're also seeing that amid, the whole, fuel staggering amount, Nigeria's inflation hit 15.70% in February. That's alarming, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. The reason it's going on is we've actually, as a nation, been conducting ourselves very irresponsibly. There's no nation where leaders fold their arms and watch the economy of the nation, sliding all the way and trying to hit the rocks, and everybody's relaxed and behaving as if nothing serious is going on. But in actual sense, something really very serious is going on. My biggest worry is that those that are hit hardest along, along the line, would one day stop every one of us from having a normal life. And if you know what I mean, when those who cannot go from one point to the other locally to look for their life, the daily livelihood, are unable to do that, and are unable to pay for one meal a day, you know what follows? Chaos. Oh. And that's not what we pray for, and that's not what we need. So those that are making all the decisions that are, dealing with issues like this should really sit up and be serious and see the danger ahead of us as a people and as a nation. And may God forbid it, we don't ever get there. Yeah.
God forbid. All right, now, airline operators have actually demanded that they should be given license to import aviation fuel, saying that if they're not given that license, and they continue operations, that Nigerians will end up spending like 120,000 naira just to get to their destination. Now, will giving them a license make any difference at all?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. It does make sense. First of all, again, let me get you to understand that aviation fuel is so important in the business of aviation that it actually constitutes 40% of the cost of operation of any flight from one point to the other. All the things you put in, the cost of the crew that will be flying the airplane, the cost of landing costs and the rest of them, insurance, everything put together, aviation fuel takes whopping 40%, out of the 100. And so you see that it's huge. It's quite huge. And so if it continues to rise the way it's been going, then you expect that the cost of operation of flights from one point to the other will become outrageous. And of course, for the airline to survive, to break even before looking for some profit, they will have to get it at an acceptable cost. Yes, it makes sense to issue licenses, not just even to airline operators. No, any businessman in Nigeria that has the money to do that kind of business should be licensed. And then what government can do is set up a body that will control what's being brought in. A serious-minded body headed by a serious-minded individual who will ensure that everything that finds its way into this country is thoroughly inspected, tested, and seen to be the quality that is acceptable. Because it's good enough to have a whole lot of these things coming in order to keep the price down. But at the same time, again, safety is extremely important, because if you run the jet engine with some adulterated fuel, what you find is you get up in the air and then the engines begin to shut down. Yes, and if you lose your engine power when you're already airborne, you are doomed. Yes, you're doomed, because that plane will get off the sky, and the rest is history that nobody wants to experience. And so there is actually no sense in what we are doing currently. Limiting the importation to NNPC and perhaps one or two favored individuals. It should be opened up, and then have a very serious-minded controlling body ensuring that every drop that gets into this country is of the right quality. We can't be behaving as if we're all a bunch of unserious people or a bunch of people without knowledge. No, we've got a lot of very knowledgeable people in this country. A whole lot of us are knowledgeable. And a whole lot of us are serious-minded. And so we should be able to begin to operate like serious-minded people. Open it up. Get people who can afford to do the business. Even banks, if they're interested in sponsoring those kind of the transactions, and they have people they can trust, let them have their licenses, get these things in, and of course, definitely prices will come down. The reason this is going on is that some individuals are enjoying monopoly, and so they are playing around. Otherwise, tell me how I had in the news last night that during the meeting with the members of House, some individual from NNPC announced that they had brought it by just decree, by just a word of mouth. Oh, okay, now we bring it down from 600 and something to 500. What does that tell you?
They agreed on a benchmark.
Yeah, but what does that? Yeah, what does that tell you? If somebody can wake up overnight and say, okay, we're not doing 600 anymore, and let's do 500, it shows you that the figure was manipulated in the first place. So you can manipulate it upwards, and then manipulate it downwards.
I was actually going to ask, know, if there's some kind of politics involved, because while most of these airlines were saying that they only had only fuel for 3 days stock, you have Obugo Ukoha, that's the executive director of Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, saying that there's enough aviation fuel to last the country for 34 days.
One way or the other, whoever makes a claim must prove it. That would be my answer to that. But I must tell you, while I was, we were, because I was in company with my wife, while we were at the airport, at the departure lounge, GAT, that is the General Aviation Terminal in Lagos, we noticed that the whole place was filled with passengers that had been there waiting since 8 a.m. We got there by about 11:30 because we had a 2 o'clock, flight. And we couldn't even find somewhere to sit down. And everybody was just, and when I asked questions, about what was going on there, and some individuals said to me that their flights were for the previous day. Yes.
Wow.
And then they were asked to come in early this morning, and they were there from 8 o'clock. And then the airline continued to announce that they couldn't fly because they didn't have aviation fuel. And some announced that they couldn't fly because the weather was inclement and all those kind of things. And I hate to hear stories like this, because they tell it to the people who do not understand what is or what should be. I have it on record that Lagos happens to be one of the lucky airports that's got the Category 3 instrument landing system. Now, it's an awesome instrument landing system that enables compliant airplanes to land totally blind. So the fact that you have hazy weather, you have Hamilton haze, and you're not able to sight the wrong way, is absolutely unnecessary with Category 3 instrument landing system, because all the pilot needs to do is to keep an eye on his glide slope and follow the glide. Even if he shuts his eyes, if he's hooked it on auto, for instance, that plane will get there nicely and touch down on the threshold of the runway. That is the awesomeness of Category 3 instrument landing system. Our Honorable Minister Hadisirika has made it severally known that we've got that successfully installed in Lagos. We've got that successfully installed in Port Harcourt, and I think another place you will have it is supposedly Kanu. And then when people begin to tell me that flights were cancelled because the weather was hazy, yes, the ignorant ones who do not understand these things about aviation would accept those kind of stories. But you're going to be able to tell me that story, except you're telling me that that category of instrument landing system is not existing there, that we were lied to. So that's what you journalists will have to look out for. Quote me that we were told that we have Category 3 instrument landing system there in Lagos. And if it was true that it was there, mind my language, because how they are sounded now is showing to me that it's not there. But if it was there, there's no way excuse will be made over hazy weather. Planes can land with the right, one excuse that can be made anyway is if they say that the planes that the airliners are flying in Nigeria are not compliant with Category 3 instrument landing system, then I raise my hand and say, okay, I give up. Because it's not just only about installing the instrument. The planes that will fly them must be compliant. Otherwise, you can't fly the Category 3. So you journalists find out what's going on, because I hate to hear this kind of cock and bull stories, about these things. Yeah.
Quickly before we wrap up the other segment, before this whole fuel crisis came up, we were hearing about Nigeria Air, to come up in April. There are preparations to do that. But it seems this whole fuel crisis has put a sort of distraction to the preparations towards the Nigeria Air fly. Are you skeptical about Nigeria Air?
How am I going to answer this question right now? We've come a whole long way in this issue of establishment of Nigeria Air. You hear one thing today, the next day you hear another, and the next you hear yet another. Personally, what I have been doing since the last time I heard the Honorable Minister Hadisorika announce when the rollout would be is keeping my fingers crossed. And that's all. That date will come. May God keep us all alive. We'll see whether it will happen or not. And then after that, we can talk.
Okay, now just before we go, there are reports that the aviation sector is yet to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. Could this be part of it?
I do not think the COVID pandemic is affecting the local flights. Where we have challenges is, and we are still having them because we chose to do what we are doing, is the international flight. Well, when major nations that were hardest hit by COVID-19 have stopped this issue of, PCR or whatever they call it, tests. And they've suspended all those for as long as you can show that you have been vaccinated, you are good to go. And we're still busy here extorting money from, because that's what it is. You pay before you leave the nation. You arrive Nigeria, you pay yet again. And a few individuals are smiling home to their banks with billions and billions of naira that I doubt if government is seeing any of those monies. And nobody's asking questions. The message here is, if the international part of the aviation sector is still having challenges, it's our fault. Other serious-minded nations have suspended those bottlenecks. They've suspended them all. And so why are we still not streamlining things to say, hey, everybody go get vaccinated. If you must travel, you must be proven to have taken your vaccine, and then show evidence of it. And yes, some claim that a few people are also getting fake, vaccination cards. You see, I don't like us making excuses that make us look unserious and sometimes irresponsible. When people engage in playing such dirty games, it's up to government to set up an underground investigative body to check out who's doing what, find the culprits, rein them in. By the time you have jailed some high-profile individuals for doing things like that, everybody will sit up and everybody will begin to do what's right.
Right.
The reason we're misbehaving in this country is that we're not enforcing our laws. We're not showing that our laws do exist. We're not showing that they have teeth, that they can bite, that they are willing to bite, and will bite when they catch you doing the wrong thing.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I think with that, we have to wrap up our discussion here. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Yeah, so that was aviation researcher and publisher Godi Ike, sharing his perspective on happenings in the aviation sector in Nigeria. All right, with that, we've come to the end of Daybreak. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Dashan Husseina Usman.
And I'm Zainab Bala. See you tomorrow.